Welcome to my latest puzzle. Hopefully you're familiar with the concept by now. I'm going to talk you through a game, and then at a critical moment I'll stop, and then you'll have to work out what happens next. The game we're looking at today is between Danielyan and Charkalashvili. As usual, my pronunciation letting me down a little bit. It's from the Women's World Rapid Play Championship. There were some really interesting games there. I think in rapid play chess, often these games are a real roller coaster ride. Anything can happen, and this game was no exception. You can see we've arrived out of the opening at a fairly standard position where white has these so-called hanging pawns in the middle of the board, and there's a rather well-placed knight on e5 as well, and the bishops are behind, and sometimes if white can break with d5, this can really unleash a great deal of energy in the position. It can be the springboard to a very nice attack for white. But black is pretty well prepared for any break here. I like the setup on the king side with the fianchettoed bishop. This is very solid indeed. The rook is extremely well placed on e8, looking opposite white's queen. That makes it very difficult for white to break with d5 when the e-file opens. And also the rook protects the e6 square, which could be useful when, well, very important when the white queen and bishop are directed against e6. And the rest of black's pieces are very active as well. All looks pretty good. So I'd say the position is very finely balanced at the moment. Black now played knight to h5. I like this move a lot. Of course, black would like to play knight to f4, and then we can see there's a rather nasty counterattack against g2. I think white's best response here is to play g3, just preventing knight f4. Now I understand why white didn't want to play this move, because of course it weakens the squares on the long diagonal, but there's no immediate way for black to exploit this. Instead, white played knight e4, so trying to keep everything intact on the king side. But this was a mistake. Black lashed out with f5. The knight had to move away, and then the knight came into f4, and g2 is collapsing. So the queen played here, and knight takes g2. And I think objectively we could say that black ought to be winning this position, but it is still extremely complicated because you can see all the pieces are still on the board, so it's not easy. And white struck back with d5, breaking in the centre. Now we can see one of the drawbacks of playing f5 is that it weakens the diagonals towards black's king. So although it was very desirable for black to take on g2, there is a slight downside. But black reacted well with knight h4, and now of course there's a threat to take on e5 and then give a devastating check on f3. So white played queen e3, but that's a bit tricky because it's in the same line as the rook, and after this again there's a threat just to take here and then take again, luring the queen to e5, and then knight f3 forks once more. So white had to play f4, and here, well, black played queen d6, which is not a bad move, but I think maybe black missed a really good chance here with the rather counterintuitive move bishop takes knight. So giving up that bishop for a knight, which looks a bit odd, but in fact the idea is that after this we're going to give up the exchange. Again, queen takes is impossible because of the knight fork. And now d4, and once again we're using this idea of the knight fork. Rook takes would run into queen takes and a knight f3 check. So after d4 the queen has to go back, and now knight check, and now queen h4. And well, I don't think we need to go too much further. Basically black has sacrificed the exchange, has two pawns for it, but this knight is just a rock. Holds the d4 pawn, it's hassling the king. Queen is on the attack. I'm sure black has a winning position here. And maybe more importantly, black has the initiative. Very important in a game. So I think bishop takes knight would have been the best move here. Queen d6 is also good, but not yet decisive. So white has survived the first wave of attack, you could say. Now it's black's move, and here is the position that I'd like you to consider. I'm going to give you two alternatives. You have to choose the one you like the best, after some calculation, I hope. So here are your alternatives. First of all, rook takes c1. Would you like to play that? And the other alternative is king to g7. So think carefully. After I finish speaking, on the screen you'll see two buttons. Just click through on the move that you would like to play, and that'll take you through to the next clip where I'll analyse the move that you chose. Good luck.